Good morning once again. Our next presentation is going to be about testing applications on mobile devices, and it will be given by Doron Reuveni from uTest.
Hi guys, I'm on, yeah? Okay. Good morning. So let me start by introducing myself. I'm Doron Reuveni. I'm the CEO and co-founder of uTest. A little bit of background about my company before I start. uTest today is the world's largest marketplace for software application testing. So primarily we provide software testing services to software companies that develop web, desktop, and mobile applications, and we do that in a very unique way. We do that using the world's largest community of professional testers. Today in our community we have over 20,000 professional testers from 158 countries across the globe. And my presentation is about the unique challenges of mobile application testing. We all know that mobile is a hot market. It's significantly growing at a fast pace, multi-billion-dollar industry. We as QA and test leaders face some unique challenges when testing mobile applications, and I'm going to address that. I'm also going to introduce the concept of crowdsourcing or crowdsourced testing or community testing and talk about how crowdsourcing or crowd testing can be utilized as one of the tools in the arsenal of a QA or test leads in order to handle and work with some of those unique challenges. Primarily the need to test across real devices in real locations. Now, really excellent presentations in the last 2 days. My presentation is kind of unique because it doesn't talk about a technology or a technical innovation. It talks about people's innovation and business process innovation. So in essence, you're not going to see any lines of code in my presentation, even though everything behind the business process is facilitated by a relatively robust technology platform that facilitates the business process innovation. So from an agenda perspective, I'm actually going to start by introducing crowdsourcing. Talk a little bit about the history, talk a little bit about crowdsourcing in other types of industries. Then I'm going to introduce the mobile application market. Talk about the size of it, how it's growing, and what's at stake for mobile developers and people that are testing mobile applications. I'm going to talk about the unique challenges of what we call in-the-wild testing that mobile needs. And I'm going to address where crowdsourcing fits when we look at the 4 dimensions of testing: in-houses versus outsource, manual versus automated, scripted versus exploratory, and on-device versus off-device for mobile. We're then going to take a deeper dive and take a look at some of the challenges of crowdsourced testing. It's one of the tools. It doesn't provide the bulletproof solution. So we're going to talk about some of the challenges. We're also going to talk about the benefits. And we're also going to talk about how does it really work in a real-world scenario. And we're going to end with real-world examples of people and customers that are using it in order to do their testing. So let's start with crowdsourcing. So, in order to wake you up a little bit, who has ever heard about the term crowdsourcing? Okay. Who hasn't? Okay, that'll be interesting. Who's ever used crowdsourcing in some way or another? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, not bad. So crowdsourcing was defined by, at least the academic definition, by Jeff Howe, who is a journalist in Wired magazine. And Jeff defined it as the act of taking a job or a service traditionally performed by a designated person, usually an employee, and sourcing it to a large group of people in the form of an open call. So that's the academic definition of crowdsourcing. But actually, crowdsourcing started about 100 years prior to that. And it started in a small town in England. So I'm going to tell you a story now, which is not about software testing, but it's an interesting story. So in this town in England, about 100 years ago, or just over 100 years ago, they held a contest in town. Contest was, there was a new bull, bull, that was born, and all the people in the town had to come and guess the weight of the bull. And it was in stone, for the people that come from England, but I'm actually going to speak in the metric. So all the people from town came and basically, wrote on a piece of paper what they believe is the weight of the newborn bull. And, small kids and adults, and at the end of the day, they analyzed the results, and they saw something which is very interesting. If they look at the average guess, it was very, very far away from the actual size of the bull. But when they looked, the actual weight of the bull, but when they looked at the average of all guesses, it was only 2 grams away from the actual weight of the bull. That came to be known as the wisdom of the crowd. So was that a fluke? No, it wasn't a fluke. It was actually tried in many guessing games after that, like guessing the amount of jelly bean in a jar. And they actually figured out that the results are consistent. And not only that, the larger the crowd, the more accurate the guess is. And that became to be known as the wisdom of the crowd. Now, the question is, can we apply that to testing in some way? We'll get to that. So before we go to testing, let's talk about crowdsourcing in other industries. For the people who are not familiar with the term or have not used it. So in information and media, I think everybody knows Wikipedia was created by the crowd, contributed by many people. Dig, Yelp. In marketing services, a good friend of mine started a company called Trada. People today go and basically hire experts in order to do the Google AdWords campaign. What Trada does is basically has experts compete to do the best Google AdWords campaign for you. So he has a crowd competing to it. Companies like Genius Rockets. IT services companies like LiveOps that does call center using the crowd. Companies like OnForce. I want to wire my office instead of calling a company. I can basically post a job, have people compete for it, and the guys that win come and basically do it. Design companies. I don't know how many people here know Twitter, but the little birdie, which is basically the logo of Twitter, Twitter paid $495 for it, and they did it using a crowdsourced design site. And there's many crowdsourcing design sites, basically real designers, which are freelancers, doing design work. A local company where I come from, called Local Motors, who are this year going to produce the first car that was designed by the crowd, okay? And, one very interesting aspect of the crowd is actually crowdsourced development. So a company out of New England called Topcoder basically has developers compete for best algorithms. Developers compete to writing test applications, and they're basically using the crowd in order to develop applications for their customers. So to summarize, what is crowdsourcing? So really, crowdsourcing is an approach to delivering a service. It's the capability to leverage a large community of customer professionals. So these are not just people. It's people in a specific field of expertise that come together as a community, okay, and work together for a common cause. It really is a people and business model innovation. Now, what it is, crowdsourcing is not traditional offshoring or outsourcing. It's not a tool or technology, and it's not a technical innovation. So I'm going to put crowdsourcing aside. We'll put it together in a second. Let's take a look at the mobile application market. So who doesn't have a smartphone here? 1, 2, 3. Wow. Okay. So, you know, the competition around smartphones and mobile is fiercer than ever. The estimated size of the market next year is $8.5 million. I'm talking about apps only. I'm not talking about mobile devices. Developers today are really competing for media attention, for consumer dollars, for App Store approval, for VC investments. It's one of the largest growing markets today. And it's not only in the consumer apps. Enterprise applications are starting to go to mobile as well. Banks are doing iPhones applications. So are insurance companies. There really is the pressure to build and test and launch and get to market faster with high quality, better than my competitor, has never been fiercer. Competition is really, really tough. Now, what's the most interesting thing is that application is really the driving force behind mobile. I mean, look at the iPhone commercial, okay? No one highlights the fact that the screen is very nice or, you know, it can play music. They basically say, you know, there's 50,000 apps that can do this and can do this and can do this. So that leads me to my next statement that basically said that the battle for mobile dominance is going to be fought and won on the field of the apps. The apps are really the driving force behind selling these mobile devices, behind selling these mobile services. Market size. So this is from GigaOM, and you know, iPhone is today the largest platform for mobile application developers. The estimate is that by the end of the year, Android is going to be the #2 platform. But basically, the estimate is that, you know, today there's 200 million worth of applications sold every month. That's $2.4 billion a year, and this is on the iPhone only. Okay, and this is today's run rate. So this is a multi-billion-dollar industry growing at a significant pace. Now, let's take a look about on the side of testing. So testing today in mobile application is what we call the wild, wild west, okay? It's basically where everybody's a cowboy. It's where web and desktop were a few years ago. And really, the status quo that we have around application testing is not sufficient for mobile today. Mobile is going at such a fast pace. Automation for mobile is still not there. There's many companies that are looking in order to do things. And by the way, the guys in the room which are entrepreneurs, there's many opportunities around testing for mobile devices. Part of the huge challenge and the unique challenge of mobile application testing is that the matrix that needs to be covered and tested on mobile devices has significant depth and is growing. So in order to really get the coverage and test across everything that you need to test, you really need to worry about handset makers and models and different wireless carriers, because applications behave differently with wireless carriers, and different operating system and browsers, and languages, which are also important, and location, location, location. So my application behaves differently in different locations in a mobile device, not only because it's tied to my GPS, but also because it's tied to a server and its behavior behaves differently if I connect to it from Germany or I connect to it from the US. So location really matters. You know, one great example, which I always give, I have a friend who has a mobile application startup. It's called Pixis Mobile. And it's actually an enterprise application, beautiful application. Everything was going great. You know, had perfect coverage on mobile devices until one day, Blackberry released his touchscreen. You know, he basically had to reinvest and rewrite all the front end in order to support touchscreen for the Blackberry. So what makes it even worse is that the applications are relatively simpler. So time to market is a real pressure, and the margins that you can get from these applications are narrow and are shrinking all the time. They're sold at a much lower rate, and sometimes they're even given for free. So you really need to manage cost effectively. So let's take a look at crowdsourcing and see where crowdsourcing fits in for mobile applications. I'm going to look at the 4 different dimensions and talk a little bit about crowdsourcing and where it fits in. So dimension number 1 is really in-house versus offshore. And, you know, obviously the pros of in-house is that the fact that, you know, you have more control, you have more visibility, your in-house team has application and business knowledge and expertise of the actual application. The cons is that it's relatively fixed cost. I cannot scale as quickly from a coverage perspective. My coverage is not, you know, huge because I cannot hire hundreds of people to cover it, and I cannot fly them to different locations. And there is a higher level of commitment when I invest in an in-house team. We look at the other extreme and we look at offshoring. So the perceived cost is lower. It has more scalability. It's lower commitment for me because it's a contract. It's not my people. But really adaptability is the fact that the testers are not diverse. The transparency is the fact that many times its perceived cost is low, but I have communication issues, which cost me internally, and basically causes me to hidden costs. So crowdsourcing actually fits right in the middle. It takes some of the benefits from both ends. So with crowdsourcing, I can get significant coverage because I can utilize a crowd in order to test the mobile application in different locations and get significant coverage that can grow over time. I have the agility to scale whenever I want. I have the creativity of testers that I know their grading, I know their past experience, and my total cost, since I don't invest in it in the long time and I can utilize it on demand whenever I'm ready, is significantly lower. There are some cons as well. It requires a high level of coordination. There is some learning curve, so I need to be repetitive in the tasks that I give. So the crowd learns my application and the way I want them to report bugs and issues. And there is a signal to noise ratio that goes down over time, but this is something that I need to learn to deal with as time goes by, until my virtual testing team learns the application and does it correctly. The other dimension is manual versus automated. And agreed that it's not this or this. Obviously, a combination is the best, but I'm putting it in an extreme in order to show you where crowdsourcing fits. So manual, you know, there's obviously agility of the manual testers, there's creativity. It allows us to explore the edges. It doesn't provide the scalability, the repetitive tasks, the fact that there may be human error involved, and basically the exhaustive coverage that I need. On the side of automation, you know, it's good for many things. It has a scalability. The investment obviously provides ROI in the cost for the long term. It provides speed for repetitive tasks. It doesn't provide me the coverage for in the wild. It's more in the lab type of testing, specifically for mobile application. And it ignores the unexpected, limits the imagination, and hinders adaptability. Crowdsourcing really fits, at least today, in the manual side. Because these are manual testers which are testing on device. Now, we, and I know there's some other companies that are experimenting with handing some automation device to testers in the field and handing or giving some testers in the field basically diagnostic tools that can run and report to a main server. So we definitely see that as a direction where the market will go, combined together with the manual testing. The third dimension is exploratory versus scripted. So exploratory testing provides the agility, creativity, allows us to explore the edges. Doesn't ensure coverage and may have some human error involved. On the scripted side, it does provide predictability. It does provide me coverage and control, but really ignores the unexpected and limits the creativity. Crowdsourcing can do both, and it should do both. although it excels in the exploratory side. This is where it really gives a value. But you can basically do both. You can get coverage across a wide range of devices, across a wide range of countries, locations, carriers, networks, OSs. But it can really excel in exploratory-based testing when you're using good testers in the crowd to really explore your application. The last one is on-device versus off-device. Now, there are today many companies that do off-device type of testing. They start by, connecting your mobile device to a main hub and basically having a camera on top and basically allowing you to do some functionality, or even taking your mobile device apart, putting it in a lab, and connecting it to a simulator where you can actually do the testing using some virtual window into the actual mobile device. And that's what's called basically off-device testing. So on-device obviously has the agility, the creativity, the real-world device, the interaction with the network or the multiple networks, the interaction with the user. It's more time-consuming. It has a higher cost because you need to do the coverage, and you need the device access. The off-device, in the long run, it provides good cost ratio. It provides speed. It provides convenience, but it doesn't give us the in the lab, the in the wild testing, or the limited user expertise, or it is really detached from the real world. So crowdsourcing really fits on the on-device. Crowdsourcing is basically testing on device, okay? And that's really where it excels, and that's where we see the value of it. So let's take a closer look at crowdsourced testing and how it works. So the idea behind the crowdsource option is, and the really secret sauce behind it, is to match the right tester with the right project. So the idea here is not to take the specific project and throw it at the crowd and see what you get, because your signal-to-noise ratio is going to be significantly high. The idea is really to monitor and get as much data as you can due to past history and profiling of the tester, and really match the right tester with the right project, because this is where you'll get the value. And that also allows you, or allows customers, to build the virtual testing team that will go with them from iteration to iteration. And will continuously test with them, and will get used to the way that they want things reported. And obviously, the value is in the wild testing and real location-based testing. Now, not only you can go and choose and select your testing team based on past experience and on profile, you can even use some metric like user demographics in order to pick and choose your testing team. So if you're developing the next social network application for a mobile device, you can basically select and pick and invite testers with background on social network type of testing. And that's really where you get the true exploratory value of the actual testing. Now, crowdsourcing is not the answer for all mobile application testing, and does not intend to be. Crowdsourcing is basically another tool that can be used in the hands of a test lead in order to get better coverage, better exploratory testing, and real-world on-device type of testing. Let's talk a little bit about the challenges, because, this is a true world and nothing is ever perfect. There's a lot of noise in crowdsourcing today. And what's very important is when you choose a crowdsourcing partner to do your testing or your mobile testing or anything else, you really need to choose your partner wisely. And the really important thing is that when the crowd and the application interact, there's basically mutual grading that goes on. So every time the tester performs a job, he gets some credit, he gets some grade. Every time a project gets to be tested, the project gets graded, the company gets graded. So in essence, it is very important for you to choose a company or to use a partner for your crowdsourcing that basically has a track record and many customer wins, because all those previous customers' wins help to build and shape up the community of testers that will provide you value. You also need to choose a partner that provides complete transparency and past history of the actual successes of the crowd. So you can basically pick and choose and invite the right testers that fit and meet your project. Some of the most common challenges when using crowd is as follows. So communication. How do I communicate with my testers? So you need to choose a partner that has a technology platform that facilitates communication with the testers on a one-to-one basis, via chat, via email, on a one-to-many, via message board, via video chat message board. One real concern is IP protection. So, I'm developing this great new application. I'm going to launch it to the market. The market has never seen it before. Oh my God, how can I give it to the crowd? So really, you need to choose a partner that facilitates the capability to sign direct NDAs with certified testers that have proven track records. You also need the capabilities to allow you to do check-in and check-out of specific applications to be tested, because that allows you complete traceability into, if something happens, who basically leaked it. Quality. The most important thing about the quality is the capability to build your testing team and go with it basically for the long run. And really the value is the capability to re-invite testers from cycle to cycle. Imagine something like favorite testers. Imagine something like bookmarking testers and inviting them to my next releases. Application knowledge is critical, and that's why you kind of need to have A, the cadence in order to do your cycles, and B, to have the capability to re-invite those specific testers back. Now, on the signal to noise ratio, there's many, many things that overcome that. Some of them are technology issues. For example, we, for example, have an automatic duplication of duplicate bugs that are reported. So we discourage testers from reporting duplicate bugs in that manner. So something can be handled in an automated manner. Some things can be handled in an education. Some things are handled by the fact that testers are graded for their reports. So basically, the good testers flow to the top, while the not good, the guys that don't follow the rules, get less and less projects to basically participate in. And that, over time, improves the signal-to-noise ratio. So if you did everything right, what does crowdsourced testing give you? It gives you the capability to really launch higher quality applications, tested across real-world devices in real-world location by real people that meet your criteria. The capability to invite testers back, build my own virtual testing team that continues to grow with me from cycle to cycle, get to market faster. You can do cycles within the weekend, within 2 to 3 days. Cycles that usually take 2 to 3 weeks, because you can utilize a larger group of testers with more tools, with more devices, with more coverage in a much shorter period of time. You can ramp up quickly, so you can spin up projects within a matter of hours, okay? You have a large crowd, you can invite many people, you can spin it up in a matter of hours. And it can contain QA codes. You don't need to sign long-term contract. You can really utilize this on demand and pay for the value that you get. But remember, execution is critical. You really need to have a large community of very skilled and engaged testers, and you need to have a technology platform that facilitates the communication between the testers themselves, between the testers and the project, in order to manage the bugs, execute the test script, and provide automated coverage report. One very important thing is that the platform needs to have the capability to integrate into your product development lifecycle, into sometimes your requirements management, sometimes to your backtracking system. So you can really use it as a seamless extension of your in-house testing teams. So really, how does it work? It really works in a very, very simple software as a service mode. You can go to a software as a service site and basically specify your testing needs. You basically specify, what do I want to test, and who would I like testing for me? And I can be very broad. I can say, you know, I have this mobile website. I want everybody testing for me across the world. Or I can be very specific. I'd like to have Blackberry testers in Germany on a T-Mobile network with experience and expertise in social network application on a mobile device. After I specify that, the system matches the right testers based on experience and profile with my project. Those testers get invited. They get access to the project and the project details real time, and they start testing and reporting in real time on real live devices. You get all your bugs and feedback and coverage reports in real time, and you have the capability to approve them or don't approve them. And that is very, very important, because by approving them and communicating with the tester, you basically grade the tester and you help choose and select your testing team for your next iteration. Now, in a crowdsourcing model, the testers do get paid. So they do get paid for valuable work that they've done. Okay? And that's an incentive for them to actually do provide value and actually do good work and complete the coverage. So to summarize, before I go to a few real-world examples. So in mobile application today, fast-growing, significant market, testing is much of an afterthought, and it can't be an afterthought. The traditional testing methods that we have today that work for web, work for desktop, work for enterprise, don't work as well for mobile. The problem for mobile is different. It's significant in size, and location, devices, the matrices that needs to be covered are significant. Crowdsourcing helps cover that matrix. Crowdsourcing helps do real live on-device testing. Crowdsourcing does help get real exploratory testing on live devices by real experts. I'm going to end, before the questions, with basically two real-world examples. Show you some real companies that use this on a real-world example. So company number one is a startup from Seattle. It's a company called OneCast. OneCast has both an iPhone application and an Android application. The application is focused on delivery of news and video. Their challenge was really, we need to launch a leading-edge product in a multi-platform world. We are a startup. You know, we have a team of 7 developers. We have 1 person in QA. We want to launch. We want to be the leaders in the market. We need to cover Wi-Fi, and we need to worry about 3G and the AT&T Edge network. And we really need testing that we can afford. We cannot, you know, we've evaluated everything. So we looked at increasing our in-house team, really not so effective for a startup our size. We're not willing to give control to a real offshore. And really they searched, you know, alternatives, and they came to crowdsourcing. Crowdsourcing actually gave them global coverage that they needed across iPhone and Android with a significant cost saving. They could specify their requirements, their testing needs, create a virtual testing team. They integrated their product development platform and test management platform. In this case, they use Rally software because they're an agile shop, into the crowdsourcing solution. and really went and took it the extra step when they're actually doing weekly builds, tests, and deploys to the market using the development team, their in-house QA team, and a complete virtual crowdsourced testing team. The other example is a company called Tapulous out of Palo Alto, California. And everybody that has an iPhone here, and I don't know how popular iPhone is, but basically Tapulous develops the game Tap Tap Revenge 3, which is the #1 game on the iPhone store. And it's really a combination of a gaming application that needs to work on an iPhone device and at a later stage on an Android device. And they had to test it on different OSs, carriers, devices, and location. They had a really significant launch called Tap Tap Revenge 3. And they also need to test multiplayer games, which was, unique, and you need testers communicating and working with each other. You really need to be able to test both offline and online mode in a 3G environment. They had an in-house testing team, which took care of, most of the issues. However, specifically in a gaming application, the testing teams becomes very, very familiar with the game and the way it goes, and it's very difficult for in-house to cover all the extreme cases that are really hit in the field. And outsource was a little bit too expensive for them to choose, and that's why crowdsourcing was chosen as a real blend, an ideal blend of both beta testing and in-house type of testing. They tested across North America, both usability and functionality, found some significant high priority bugs before the launch of Tap Tap Revenge 3, and really achieved comprehensive testing within a matter of weeks, what they estimated will take actually months. So they actually expedited time to market significantly. Thank you. I'm open for questions.
Check. Thank you for this presentation. It was very well thought out. One of the questions I had was, you said you have these crowd testers all over the world. But one of the challenges for companies is, like, if you outsource stuff to, say, India, first of all, they might not have the right infrastructure, or they are not familiar with the app. So how do you handle that, like language barriers, that kind of stuff?
Okay, it's a very good question. So ideally, when we work with companies, this is very typical to any crowdsourcing type of a mode, you can really select and choose the testers based on different criteria. Some criteria is, where they live in, the country of origin. So you can basically come and say, I'm developing an application for the German market, and I actually want to select testers from Germany. And that's very, very common. And that's part of the value that crowdsourcing gives you. When you type into an environment of 20,000, 30,000 testers, you can really have the capability to cut and slice and create your own virtual testing team. You never give it to 20,000 people. You really have the capability to pick and choose the people that you want to invite, and the people that have the real background information on things that they've done like that in the past. And now what we do is we're crazy about data. So basically we analyze everything. We analyze everything about the applications, and we analyze everything about the testers. So every bug that is reported, how many bugs they've reported, how many bugs approved, how many bugs approved, how many bugs actually were fixed by the customer. So we really have a significant investment in a grading system that allows us to really put these, top testers together.
Excuse me. Over here.
Sorry.
Yeah, it was a very good talk. I have some experience of testing mobile applications, and have faced that problem of how to get the coverage of all the devices and configurations that are out there. You mentioned that crowdsourcing can improve product quality. That sort of challenges the statement we heard last night, which is that it's not all about finding bugs. So what do you do when these people out in the wild with all these various configurations find a bug on a device or a configuration that you can't reproduce in your development environment?
Okay, and it's a good question, and that obviously happens. That's why one of the most important things is really a technology that allows you to have a communication with the tester. The testers are actually incented to help the company to figure out the source of the bug because of two reasons. One, they want the bug proved because they get compensated for it. But even more important to that, they get graded. And that impacts the future project that they will get, and it impacts their rates moving forward. So the testers are really incented to help the companies figure out the source code of the bug and where the bug is coming from. Now, there are occasions where they work with the company and they work with the development team, but still there's no real source for the bug. And they provide proof, in a real live picture or a video demo that there is a bug. So first of all, it goes into the repository of the company. And obviously, it's better to know than not to know. In many cases, in this occasion, the tester does get compensated if there is proof for that. Many occasions, it also get overcompensated by the company because that's really valuable information.
I'm interested in the issue of coping with unpredictable demand, because presumably you want to keep your top coders engaged, your top testers engaged. Mm-hmm. Which means they have to have enough flow of work to keep them involved. But you can't, you can't necessarily, you don't necessarily know how much demand is coming in from your clients, and I'm wondering how you manage that kind of thing.
So it's partly true. Mostly customers today are developing in agile environments, and their release schedule and cadence of releases is pretty much predictable. And what happens is that if you look at the top testers, usually, in crowdsourcing, and I haven't talked about it, but it's true statistically to any large community, there's something which is called the 99-1 rule. What does that mean? It basically means that 90% are quiet listeners, 9 are active, and 1% is very, very, very active. Okay? So this 1% of the guys which are really, really active and are on the top, these are usually the top-tier guys, the certified testers, the guys that are assigned to ongoing virtual projects of existing customers. And what happens over time, there's an ongoing, predictable cadence of releases to the market. There's a virtual testing team that goes with these customers from cycle to cycle. So there's a lot of value to the customer base, which is saying, this is my 30-person team that actually does the coverage for me on my weekly build. And, I can also invite new blood every time. And that's really the way it is worked. So for the 1%, it's pretty predictable. The problem is that when you start, you need to prove yourself in order to get to the 1%. And you prove yourself not only by testing, but also contributing to forums, being active in other forms of engagements, et cetera, et cetera.
Hey there. Do you give the testers scenarios to try, like sets of scenarios that you want feedback on, or do you just let them hand bang around wherever they want to?
It really depends on the customer. So many cases, we give some base test case so the testers can use as a form of playing with the application, but really the value is in significant exploratory testing within the realm of some scope of the application. Now, one of the things that I don't want to mislead you, many times, we don't only test finished products, okay? Many times we test product in early development life cycle where the customer gives us specific focus to test and tells everybody else to avoid, sideline focus. So that's that happens all the time.
Thank you. And my question is about, are there any limitations about possibility to form the kind of crowd you need to test the application. For example, I'm not sure I can imagine people with Blackberries who will be, what can make them motivated to participate in testing?
Okay, it's a good question. And there are markets which are less open to this type of solution like others. But it's very typical like, many other industries. Look at virtual computing. When it first came out, many companies said, well, I'm going to put my data on the grid. Why, am I crazy? What about security? And over time, everybody's starting to migrate. People start to feel comfortable with the fact that it really works. They get compensated. They belong to something. They contribute to quality of application. They get some financial incentive. They are rated the top tester for company X. There's a lot of value in it for the testers. Now, I'll tell you something, very, very interesting. I go and speak a lot, and I talk to a lot of test leaders in many, many types of countries, in many, many types of projects. Many of these test leaders actually incentivize their people to go and sign up for uTest and work for uTest. Now, the reason for that is the visibility to different types of applications and different types of technology and different types of methods of testing makes them a better tester. So there's value in that as well.
I have two questions. The first one is, if a company wants to test their next generation flagship product, how can it prevent this information from being leaked to the competitors? And the second one is that I have an idea for an iPhone application. I want to use I want to ask programmers from Topcoder, for example, to implement it for me. How can I prevent the situation that suddenly there are dozens of similar applications deployed in App Store based on the same idea? Thanks.
Let me try to address the issue of the IP protection. So, first of all, let's start with a fact. 25%, and I'm speaking my name and my company name, 25% of the applications that we test today are under NDA, private releases, and under full IP protection. Okay, it's a fact, 25%. And there's many mechanisms that we utilize in order to protect IP. None of them are 100% secure. The mechanisms are, we know who the testers are, we pay them, we know where they live, we have their social security number, passport numbers, they sign an NDA with us, they sign an NDA with the company. Every time they download an application, they check it out. Okay, so if something is deployed to the market, we know what the source of where it was. Okay, so that's all things that basically, make sure that it's not worthwhile for the tester to do something bad. Okay, now, did anything bad happen in the past? No. Could it? Yes, it could. Can we pursue the testers for it? Yes, we can. Okay, so, but it can also happen with, an employee. I'll give you an example. The source code for Windows 7 was posted on, on a forum, I think, after the beta. So employees also leak. It's in today's world, IP protection, the fact that you develop in Agile and you release product to the market all the time, becomes less of an issue. That's my own opinion.
Question. So what are the barriers to entry for another company to become the next uTest competitor? And second question is there a university or case study written on your company as yet?
Okay. So question number one. Obviously, there's many barriers of entry. Part of it is technology. Part of it is the fact that, testers build reputation over time. So if I'm a tester and I'm going to some other community, it takes me time to build a reputation. We're invested significantly in R&D and development. Okay, so out of 23 employees, we have 12 which are basically doing development. And the reason for that is we're rolling out functionality all the time that ensures that we collect data all the time. So also the fact that we're collecting data about bugs, about behavior of application, about stability of application, about maturity of application, about our testers, also gives us an edge over the competition. Because if someone starts from the beginning, he has zero data. He needs to start from the beginning. He needs to start creating and building his community. He needs to start understanding the demands of the customers. But there are competitors. So there's actually many case studies. There's case studies on mobile applications. There's case studies on desktop applications. There's case studies on web applications. They're all on the website. We're now doing a significant case study with Microsoft. We basically tested for them Microsoft Security Essentials, which was released a couple of months ago very successfully. So they're doing a significant case study with us.
I would like to ask you, what are the preconditions to become your tester? And can you tell me a profile of a known tester? I mean, how much salary can you get? And so, or is not a secret?
No, it's actually not a secret. So in order to become a tester with us, it's basically nothing. You need to come to the website and you need to profile. However, in order to actually get projects, you need to prove yourself. Okay, and you need to prove yourself with us, and you need to prove yourself with customers. Okay, and only once you start getting grading and feedback from customers, only then you will start getting visibility to the most important project. After you have a proven track record for a few months, only then you will start to see what we call private releases, basically, which are intended for our certified testers. So that's basically how it goes. You cannot just go in and test. Now, what you'll be able to test immediately is our product. So, we use our community in order to test our product. So that's one way for us in order to build the community. We also have different types of projects which are open source, which basically allows us to categorize our testers to silver, gold, bronze, silver, and gold, and allows testers, to be graded from more promising and basically go up the ladder. Oh, and about compensation, it really depends. Our top testers can make, the real top testers can make a few $1,000 a month. So it's not a replacement to the day job, at least not in the US or Western Europe, but it is nice income.
Hello. Am I on? Yeah. You've spoken almost exclusively about bugs. Can you or do you also deal with tangential matters such as, for example, usability or feature requests as maybe in more usual beta testing?
Yeah, so obviously when you do exploratory testing, the end result is bugs, and about 80% of what we do is exploratory. We do about 10% today, which is usability testing, and another 10%, which is like testers that get to a certain level and provide project management. We also do load and performance. We do automated load, and we also do something which is basically automated load provided by our certified testers and automated testing provided by our certified testers. But we also do something which is very unique, which is real live load. Basically, the idea is, and we've had the need for that, specifically in web application, many companies come to us and say, we've invested in this, in real live load, but really, when we go live, the application behaves differently because a machine cannot really mimic significant load of human behavior. So can you have 1,000 testers do real live load for us? So we do that too.
I have a very short question. What's the end criteria of the testing for the product outsourcing? Because it's based on the bugs, number of bugs has been found, or based on the time that for the test period.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understood.
What's the end criteria of the testing for a product?
What's the criteria?
Yeah, it's based on the bugs has been found or based on how many time has been spent during the for the test.
Oh, it's basically valid feedback, which could be bugs, executed test cases, executed test scripts. It's not about time, no.
So
time is a factor in the coverage, but it's not a factor in...
So for example, if a product that some users reported 100 bugs, and then where you decide that it were good enough to release to the market, or you are still trying to hire more people to find new bugs?
So it really depends on the type of bugs, and bugs are really categorized. You know, I'll share with you some statistical information. You know, we look at the values that we provide in two ways. One, when a bug is reported, does the bug get approved? So what is the percentage of bugs that get approved after they get reported? And we call that the noise factor. The second criteria that we look at is from the bugs that get approved, how many actually get fixed, okay? The statistics today is that, and it really depends from customer to customer, but the statistics today is that almost 70% of the bugs do get approved. And out of the ones that get approved, our fix ratio, meaning the development team actually decided to fix the bug, is 54%. Now, that's usually good numbers if you compare them to industry standard, but there's also, you know, reasons for that. Part of the reason, for example, is the fact that some of what we test is products that's already being tested exhaustively by internal QA, outsourced QA, automated testing, and then it's given to us. So obviously every bug that's found there and approved will get fixed. So, you know, that's part of the reason. But the other reason is that exploratory testing on real live environments has value.